Joining us now, NBC News correspondent Stephen Romo, who is outside the courthouse in Manhattan, and former U.S. Attorney Paul Carlton. So, Steve, tell me what it's like in the courtroom today, and how did Mangione appear?
Yeah, Yamiche, a lot of eyes on this court appearance, which did not actually take too much time. He did enter that not guilty plea on his own. We were able to hear from him then. Other than that, whispering with his attorneys, appearing fairly stoic until he was outside of the courtroom, where he did appear to smile a bit before being taken away. You mentioned his attorney, Karen Friedman Agnifilo, speaking about the spectacle, as we're seeing here these images of perp walks with heavily armed people around her client, Mangione, saying that this could potentially prejudice potential jurors against him before trial, raising some concerns there and reiterating the right to a fair trial and placing the blame for this, what she called spectacle, on Mayor Eric Adams, saying that he should know better than others the importance of a right to a fair trial, referencing his own legal troubles in the process. And then we see here Mangione also being taken out the same way he was brought in after that, Yamiche.
It's really interesting, especially when you look at those images and all the people that are surrounding Mangione. Paul, I was a reporter in New York City for a long time. There are perp walks, and then there are these really big perp walks. So I wonder what you make about the argument that Mangione's lawyer is making here, whether or not it could affect how he gets a fair trial or not.
It's a legitimate concern, Amish. It's one that she is right to point out. It's one that she's right to make a record of, because you don't want the jurors to be unfairly influenced by publicity that they receive before the trial. That said, as you point out, high-profile cases occur often. They certainly do in Manhattan, and we most certainly and very recently saw them with that trial that relates to President Trump. What happens during the trial, and as you begin the trial with the prosecutor, you voir dire the jury. You make sure that the jurors who are going to sit in judgment of the defendant can be fair, can be impartial, and won't be determining guilt or innocence based upon what they've seen in the press.
And it's really interesting, and we should point out for folks, of course, this appearance today was in state court. But Mangione also faces parallel charges in federal court. What are the differences between these two cases? And will his appearance in state court today have any impact, any effect on the federal case, Paul?
It's fascinating, Yamiche, because it is unusual for there to be parallel prosecutions, one that takes place in the federal arena and then another that takes place in the state arena. That is a constitutionally permissible kind of prosecution. You can think about this as separate sovereigns or separate nations. The federal government is constitutionally permitted to go forward with this prosecution at the same time that the state is. But there is a federal policy, one known as the Pettit policy, that discourages federal prosecutors from bringing cases when there is a state case taking place at the same time. And the policy behind that is that you ought not to be spending resources on a case when another government is going forward. The other aspect of this, Amish, that I find interesting is that the federal government has available to it the death penalty. It's a penalty that's not available to the state prosecutors. And as you know, President Biden just today commuted the sentences of 37 individuals who were facing the death penalty. So the likelihood of the federal prosecutors in this case seeking the death penalty, at least until the new administration comes in, seems highly unlikely.
Yeah, well, definitely interesting to watch both those cases go on. Now, Stephen, when is Mangione expected to appear in court again?
Yeah, Yamiche, they did set that next court date today. They set that for February 21st. We've also previously heard from the Manhattan DA's office that these state charges, this state case, will be taken to trial before those parallel federal charges you mentioned. And you see all the counts there on your screen that Mangione is facing on the state level, including those terror-related charges that are getting a lot of discussion right now, Yamiche.
Yeah, really striking to see all those charges. So Stephen Romo, Paul Carlton, thank you so much to both of you.